Hello, my name is Matthew Holm. I'm the front ensemble director and arranger for the ASU Sun Devil Marching Band. We're in the middle of our band camp week here at ASU for 2008, and I'm here to talk to you about various aspects of the front ensemble. We'll talk today about our instrument setup, our technique program with 2 and 4 mallets, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce the 2008 Sun Devil Front Ensemble. We're going to play a short excerpt from our 2008 Chicago production. This is Saturday in the Park. All right, ready to go. Hey. Okay, relax. Right. So one of the first things you might notice about our setup is that we like to have our marimbas right in the center. The reason for that is that it's a very articulate instrument, that as well as a xylophone. We put the woods in the centers so that the vibraphones can listen in. In addition to that, the vibraphones provide the warmth to the ensemble, as well as a stereophonic sound from side to side. We take professionalism very seriously in the front ensemble. We like to make an impression before we even play the first notes. That's the way that we put the cymbals on the cymbal arms, the way that we mount the cymbals. As you can see, they're all the same. We don't like to have any accessories in front of the players. The most important thing is that we see the players at all times. Some of the instruments that we have in the group, we have one vibraphone player here that switches off with crotales mounted on the majestic board right there. Also, we have a marimba player playing glockenspiel, and another marimba player playing xylophone from time to time. Those are sounds that we don't necessarily need all the time. They're just punctuations. Majority of the time they are playing marimba in vibraphone. On our auxiliary racks, several hand drumming instruments, other kinds of cymbals, concert bass drum, and they're a very active part of the ensemble as well. Posture is very important. We stand with our feet shoulder width apart, shoulders back, chins are up. We use peripheral vision on the keyboards at all times. We spend many hours, especially during a band camp week, behind the instruments. So any kind of hunching over, you know, your shoulders in your pockets, those kinds of things, that really can wear on the player over the course of a band camp week especially. We also perform in a 75,000 seat auditorium, or stadium, not auditorium. Sometimes we're in an auditorium. And the seats slope up pretty quickly. So even if you're looking down slightly with your chin, you're just seeing the top of the head of the player. We always want to see the player's face in addition to the player's upper body, just like I talked about before with instruments being in the way. like to talk a little bit about how we approach the cymbals first and foremost. You saw us using all sorts of different cymbals. We are very lucky to be sponsored by Zildjian. They make an incredible array of cymbals that we like to use in the front ensemble. We have a swish knocker here in the corner. It's a riveted China cymbal. Andy, go ahead. So it's got a sustainable sizzle that works. It's definitely a specialty cymbal. We don't use it too often, maybe once or twice in a show. Splash cymbals, go ahead, and a zill bell. Right. So sometimes, you know, we have that added accent at the end of the phrase. It's a nice place to put that in. The vibraphones primarily play on China cymbals. We have all sorts of different sizes. We even have an Oriental China trash. Danielle, go ahead and just play a crash, two-handed crash. So it's a real nice dark sound. Most of our suspended cymbals are in the front, here in the marimbas. And to demonstrate, one of our members, Neil, is kind enough to demonstrate a little bit of our cymbal technique. When we play our basic crash, we like to have two hands on the cymbal. We get more of the cymbal vibrating. We set up the mallets at 9 and 3 o'clock and play off the instrument. We never play through the instrument. Okay, go ahead. Right. And another thing you'll notice with Neil's cymbal, we let the cymbal breathe on the stand. One thing we want to avoid is clamping down the felt. You can crack cymbals that way pretty easily if there's no shock absorption. And it gets much more of the cymbal blossoming, a much nicer, fuller sound. Okay, a couple other cymbal techniques we use. If we have to dampen, most of the time we just crash with one hand. We can do a double dampen. Here to demonstrate, go ahead, one-handed crash. Yep, and when we dampen, we want to make sure that we let the cymbal give its full sound before we dampen it. A lot of times with dampening selections, younger players dampen the cymbal before you can even really hear the cymbal sound. And I'll demonstrate that quickly. The difference between this, that inverted sound, and this. You know, both can be interpreted as an 8th note or a 16th note. You know, notation can vary this way and that, but very rarely do you want that inverted dead sound. You know, it's almost as if you're dampening the cymbal and hitting it with your hand on there. So, thank you, Neil. Also, the way that we approach suspended cymbals is very important. And overall, you know, when I see a lot of younger groups, they tend to think of the cymbal as an afterthought on the instrument. You know, they're playing their marimba and then psh, they might not even look at it. You know, here we really value willful cymbal playing. You know, when you're on the cymbal, that's your instrument. It's just as important as a marimba or a xylophone. So, in the technique for this, we like to start our piano to forte suspended cymbal roll with a small, almost snare drum rough. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. That gets the cymbal warmed up, and then from there, we get the hands moving. Go ahead, Neil. Right. One thing you may notice, he's not rolling all that fast on the cymbal. Depending on how large the cymbal is, you really just want to use your ears and hear how that sound is sustaining. So with the cymbal this size, you don't have to roll all that fast. And a sound you really want to avoid on the cymbals is a maxed out fast roll where you're getting all the highs. The darker tones are when we have this many cymbals and we can get that volume. The only time we really accelerate the roll is at the very end of the crescendo. So try that again. Okay, very good. Thank you, Neil. Right, we're going to move on to our 2-mallet technique. Our technique program involves 2 mallets as well as 4 mallets. The first exercise we are going to play is entitled Sharton, written by Garrett Sharton of the Cavaliers, and is an exercise that the Cavaliers use as well. So go ahead and set up. This is Sharton. relax. Right. If you haven't already noticed, the group is entirely self-sufficient when they begin exercises or show excerpts. We like to call these preps. They're not for the judges, they're not for the audience, they're just for us. We make them as small and precise as possible. What that does, it connects our exercise program to the show program in the event that they are responsible for their performance on the field, tempo-wise. The way we define listening is the center marimba player is the only one who listens back. Everyone else then listens in. So he is our main interpreter. So you may notice we cover a lot of ground here. It's about 20 yards. There's quite a sound delay. If you're a vibraphone on the end and you're hearing something on the other side, you're going to end up being pretty far behind. A lot of phasing issues. So we start everything visually. That helps us in. If we have like a four bar segment where we have a unison attack, that's a time where we do that. Or if we have to coordinate something from side to side. It's more like a chamber ensemble, how we do this. If you move together, you play together. And that's how we talk about things here at the Sun Devil Front Ensemble. The next thing, the exercise here, Sharton, works on the double stops. It's the first thing that we play. It really gets the blood flowing. Getting clean double stops, there's a little bit of independence in the two hands. We work with full legato strokes. One of our members here, Steve, in the middle marimba, will demonstrate a couple different stroke types. Height does not determine volume when we're using marimba mallets. There are a lot of people that max out their heights and they don't get a full sound. We use heavier mallets than most. They're outdoor mallets. If you have a heavier mallet, you don't have to work as hard. You let the mallet do the work for you. And go ahead, Steve. The first example here are full strokes without using a full sound. Play a little more. Okay, thank you. Go ahead and add a little bit more weight to that sound. Good. Now play our full forte that we do in Sharton. Thank you. As you notice, he's very relaxed. He's just using his full wrist motion. He's keeping his elbow loose. We're not playing with just arm. We're maxing out the wrist, keeping the elbow loose. Right? I'll talk a little bit about our grip, and I'll just use your mallets as a demonstration, sir. Right. We use all the fingers on the stick. We choke up 1/3 of the way on the mallet. And we have that traditional fulcrum like you would with the snare drum, but we like to keep the front of the hand open a little bit more. Stay very relaxed, letting the mallet do the work. We keep all the fingers on for a couple reasons. The fingers put more weight on the stick. Mass and velocity gives us our sound. Also, it's a control issue. On keyboard instruments, we don't have the rebound that we do on drums. The stick doesn't come right back to you. You have to do the work to bring the mallet back up. So we keep those fingers on, nice, full, relaxed sound. If we're playing more articulate passages, the fulcrum travels to the front. But if we're playing nice, full strokes, we keep all the fingers on the stick. Rotate from the wrist, keep the elbow open. Right, we're going to move on to our 4-mallet exercise. It's entitled Tempe Sunset, written by myself actually for this group. It works on 2 different stroke types. We have the single independent stroke, then followed by the single alternating stroke. This is the first exercise we play. Again, transferring those full legato stroke ideas to the 4 mallets. Tempe Sunset. relax. Right. So you may have already noticed that we use the Stevens grip here in the front ensemble. We use it in the vibraphones as well as the marimbas. Just gives us a more uniform approach. It's just the way we do things here. I'm not saying that the Stevens grip is the best grip. It's just what works for us, and we seem to, it works well with our program. So with the Stevens grip, we have our mallets up all the time. And what we're doing is we're working on the piston stroke. We start up, keeping our hands low, and every time we hit the instrument, the mallet bounces right back up. That's the most efficient stroke that we can use. As soon as we're striking the bars, our mallets are coming right back up and we're ready for the next note. So that it improves our accuracy quite a bit. Just to demonstrate this a little bit, I'll go back to another marimba player. His name is Robbie. So go ahead. He's going to show us some single independent strokes. It's a pattern from Tempe Sunset, and then some alternating strokes. And see how his mallets start up. Each time he hits the instrument, they come right back up. It's the piston stroke. Thank you, Robbie. Okay, very well done. So one thing that I often see from beginners, instead of the piston stroke, they naturally want to do a teeter-totter motion, where one mallet comes up and the other one goes down. The beauty of the Stevens grip is that the hands are completely the mallets are completely independent in the hand. So, Robbie, go ahead and demonstrate a teeter-totter motion. Just the alternating strokes. Thank you. Excellent. So what's happening is, we talked about efficiency before. It's not very efficient. Also, the mallet ends up swiping at the bar, and we get kind of an over-rotated motion. We're not directly hitting the bar. That drastically affects our sound. Another thing, go ahead and get to set position. As you notice his hands when he's getting ready to play, if he pushes his hands forward, his pinkies are about, they pretty much would graze the bars. I mean, we stand far enough away on the instrument where that wouldn't happen, of course, but there is a slight angle from his hands up to the mallet heads. That's very important. And what's happening there, that prepares us to hit with the meat of the mallet. If your hands are too high, you end up swiping, as I mentioned before, and most of the energy of the mallet is not being directed at the bar, it's being directed at an angle away from the bar. So go ahead and raise your hands up and leave the mallet heads down. So a lot of times beginners do this, number one, because their instrument isn't at the right height. We have all adjustable instruments now. Most manufacturers are doing that this day and age. We have adjustable instruments. So there's no reason to have that instrument too low. It should be just a little bit below the belt line. The playing surface should be a little bit below the belt line. So go ahead and demonstrate the difference in sound. Just do alternating strokes. Robbie will do alternating strokes starting with the correct position, and then he'll raise his hands up and play with the crown of the mallet. Go ahead. Now the other way. Okay, thank you. Yeah, exactly. And I'll just use one of your mallets real quickly. If you look at how much yarn ends up at the crown of the mallet, that's how the mallets are wrapped. There's a lot more yarn at the top, so we're getting a fuzzy sound, and a lot of that energy is completely missing the mallet, as I mentioned earlier. So keeping the mallets low is extremely important to get our big sound. Okay, we'll do Tempe Sunset one more time so you can get another look at how the piston stroke works in action. Tempe Sunset. Relax. The last thing I'd like to talk about today for our clinic segment is care and maintenance of the instrument. We are in extreme climate. The average temperature this week during band camp was 109 degrees. So instruments, when they're out in the sun, it can really damage them. Marimba bars take a beating. They go dead from that kind of heat. They lose their resonance, they lose their pitch. So whenever we are not playing, we make sure that those mallets are completely covered. Those mallet instruments are fully covered. Another thing, the intense heat, even if you're in the Midwest, if you're in the upper Midwest, that sun beats down. If it's an 80-degree day, those cymbals are going to heat up. If they're hot to the touch, it's good to go half volume on those instruments, especially a tam-tam. Cymbals are much more susceptible to cracking in those kinds of conditions. Another thing to think about. Cleaning the instruments, we like to do that every now and again. Just water, getting the dirt off the instruments. Those are things that can ruin your mallets pretty quickly too. We also, even though it rains very, very seldom, we have tents that we use in case of rain. The mallets will fall apart if they're in water. Yarn does not like water. Another thing to think about. And again, I'd like to thank the group. They did an excellent job today, and that will conclude for this afternoon. Thank you.